So every time I come to Louisiana, my mom got me a job as a personal caregiver. But it brings in a little cash because being disabled, you can work a little bit. And I'm so glad my mom got me this job. It opens up so many opportunities, and I got a chance to meet Mr. David, and he's just an awesome guy. His family is awesome. It really humbles me because I'm disabled, but I'm disabled in a different type of way. He's a paraplegic, and he has so much energy, so much spirit. He always finds something to do. He has hobbies. He's on the computer all the time. And they have some beautiful dogs and cats, and they stay busy. So, Mr. David, I do not want to chop your name up and make it wrong. I don't want to say it wrong. So, David
Kopaska Merkel.
Kopaska Merkel.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that what type of name is that? What type of?
Well, when we got married, we hyphenated them. Her name was Kopaska. Mm-hmm. That's Polish. Mm-hmm. And my name was Merkel, and that's German, I think, originally.
Right. So you guys put your names together.
Other people do that too. Mm-hmm. She said she didn't want to take my name. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, we got to do something.
Some men would say, hey, you got to take my whole last name and that's it.
Well, she wouldn't have married me if I'd said that.
How does it go? I pull up at the club, VIP, gas tank on E, but all drinks on me. Have you ever heard that?
No, but that's a good, clever quote.
The joke, yeah, but that's a rap lyric from a famous guy here in Louisiana. I grew up in kind of a rough neighborhood called Glen Oaks, but a lot of rappers in Louisiana really went on to be big time celebrities in Louisiana. Talk about like the details of your pain and some of the things that you go through on a daily basis.
Well, I have neuropathy in my arms and especially in my hands, and so a couple of my fingers will just start hurting, and it happens dozens of times a day. And what I can do to make it stop is to massage them. Yes. It doesn't always work right away, but I would say that your pain is probably worse because most of what's wrong with me, I can't feel any pain from.
I understand. Yeah.
So, but it does. There are a lot of inconveniences, like when I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I wake up really early, and in the old days, if I wanted to, I could just get up, make breakfast. Now I have to wait for somebody to come and get me up, and that takes even a really fast person. That's going to take half an hour. Well, when you wake up, it doesn't take you half an hour to get up. Right. So there's that. I can't wash my own hair, so when I do that, somebody else has to do it, and I can't reach into the kitchen cabinets. I can reach the silverware drawer because it's just at that height.
And neuropathy is probably the most painful thing that you go through.
It definitely is. Mm-hmm. Most of the other stuff, there's some things I have to go through. I have wounds that have to be dealt with. Mm-hmm. And if I could feel them, that would probably hurt a lot. But I don't feel anything from that.
Yeah, you don't feel it, yeah.
The only time I feel anything else is if it's really traumatic. And I don't feel it directly. Like if you break your leg, you're going to feel that right away, a very intense pain right where the break is and maybe shooting up from it. Right. Well, I broke my leg once because I had a different wheelchair, was malfunctioning anyway, and I heard it, and my caregiver heard it, and we were at the grocery store. Of course, I didn't feel anything. I said, well, maybe it's not really broken. So we got the groceries and went home, put them away, did all the evening stuff. I went to bed, and when I woke up in the morning, I felt sick. I felt really sick. Wow. And my leg was all swollen. And so the effect of the broken leg was to make me feel sick the next day. It's kind of weird.
So, and that's how you knew. And did you go to the doctor the next day, or?
Oh yeah, as soon as they could get me out of bed, we went to the ER.
Yeah, and they X-rayed it and everything. And...
Yeah, they X-rayed it. Sure enough, it was broken. A bone doctor put a cast on it, and just that part was pretty much the way it would have been for anybody else.
Wow. So you actually got sick at your stomach or your head, or
I was nauseated.
nauseated. Okay. Wow.
And a couple of other times when I've had a less serious injury, I haven't felt that bad, but I felt a little bit bad, so I knew something was probably wrong.
Yeah.
But if it was something that was kind of serious but less serious, I still wouldn't feel it.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine, he lost his hand, and he said he has like some certain type of pain. I forgot the name of it. I don't want to say it wrong, but he says he feels like he has that right arm still, and he said he has pain. I know you're not missing any limbs or anything, but
it's called phantom pain. At least that's what I've heard it called.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that. You would think maybe I would.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have asked me, but
you don't have any phantom pain or anything.
Guess I'm lucky.
That's good. That's a good thing, because I heard that phantom pain can be bad. You live here now in Louisiana, but where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from Virginia.
From Virginia.
But I haven't lived there in a long time. I lived in Alabama for about 30 years before moving here a year and a half ago.
Okay, so you were born and raised where?
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Charlottesville,
where
Virginia.
the University of Virginia is, and
Okay.
where Thomas Jefferson built all the stuff. It's
Awesome.
cool.
Awesome. I've never been to Virginia, but I hear it gets pretty cold there.
Well, compared to here,
Yes.
yeah, you just don't want to go in the middle of winter.
I love different cultures. I love people, different avenues of life, because, I was born here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I really, really love diversity of people and different cultures. I think as a people in the United States, I think if we really sat down and listened to people and listened to their how they were raised and respected the way they were raised, I really believe that our country would be a better country. What you think about that?
I think we definitely could improve things by listening to each other. I think some people are not ready to listen to anyone, but a lot of people would.
Yeah,
So
I definitely agree, and I can see where people's mindset come from. I was watching Duck Dynasty, and they were talking about this black guy was asking Cy from Duck Dynasty. He said, "Well, what do you feel about the national anthem?" And he went to the military. Cy went to the military, and he said, "I think it's very disrespectful that people take a knee for the national anthem." And the black guy, he kind of gave his point of view. He said, we're not trying to be disrespectful. We're just trying to get our point across. And at the end, Cy said, "You know what? I can respect that." But he said, "I haven't really looked at it that way." But and the black guy was like, "We're not trying to disrespect the flag. We're just telling people about the struggle that we go through with
Right.
police brutality or whatever." But just that conversation right there, it really helped out.
yeah, well, that's great.
So what college did you attend, and where what did you graduate in?
I went to William and Mary, which is in southeastern Virginia, and I majored in geology and biology, but it was an interdisciplinary major, so
Okay.
I didn't have to take all the required courses from each department, but I took most of them. So it was pretty much biology and geology. And then I went to the University of Kansas and majored in geology.
Geology. I was not good in math, but it seems like you were very smart and very, very educated.
Well, I don't know that I'm that good in math either. I mean, geology is the science that needs the least math of all the sciences.
I didn't know
I mean,
that.
you still need science and, math, and if you understand a lot of math, there are things you can do that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. But like physics is all math.
It's all math.
So
Okay, gotcha. When you graduated, what type of field or profession did you move in?
well, I wanted to work for a museum,
Okay.
but I couldn't get a job in one, and there aren't very many. And so I ended up working for an oil company.
Okay.
I worked for Shell Oil in New Orleans.
Really?
Yeah.
In New Orleans?
Right.
So is that, I know I'm jumping the gun, is that eventually why you moved back here?
Not at all. We moved back here because our youngest daughter lived here with her husband.
Okay.
And Sheila and my wife and my daughter had been talking about getting together after we retired. And we said, well, when you know you're going to stay wherever you are, then we'll move near you. And they both got promoted about the same time. So they said, well, we're staying.
After Shell, were you laid off from Shell, or did you work there before the actual injury, or what?
It was before the injury. I was laid off during the oil and gas price crash in the early 80s.
Good. So now jumping forward to your incident, what happened in your accident. You said you were involved in a car accident.
Yeah, after working in New York, I got a job at the Geological Survey of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And it's at the university, but it's a state agency, so it's not really part of the university. Anyway, so I was going to a meeting in South Alabama in Mobile, and I don't know what happened because I don't remember the accident, but the people who looked at the place where it occurred said they thought somebody cut me off, and if they did, they didn't stick around. But anyway, I woke up in the hospital in the University of South Alabama and was a quadriplegic. I have some use of my arms, but not very much, so that makes me a quadriplegic. And
how old were you? I didn't mean to cut you off, but how old?
46.
46 at the time.
Yeah.
That's how old I am. I'm 46 right now. So, okay. Yeah, so you don't remember anything about the accident?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I was driving, and then I woke up in the hospital.
Gotcha. Was it snowing or icy or?
No, it was in the spring, and the road was good.
Gotcha.
You know, if somebody didn't cut me off, I've always wondered if I fell asleep. I guess those are the two possibilities.
How did that change your life and your family? Because you're married and you have one daughter, right?
Two
daughters.
Well,
how did that change your life?
It changes a lot. I mean, I'm not even sure where to begin. My wife went with me to the rehab hospital in Atlanta, and they teach the family members, whoever wants to learn, how to take care of the injured person, and they'll teach you all kinds of stuff that mostly RNs know how to do, and or maybe some LPNs. Anyway, because sometimes you don't have a nurse around. Right. And she was very willing to learn all that stuff. And that was when I found out how lucky I was to have married her.
You all been married for how long? 40? You have a long year?
40-some years, 43.
That's awesome.
The company I work for, well, it's a state agency, the Geological Survey of Alabama. And the agency boss and the guy, one of the guys who worked under him, who was my boss's boss, all three of them just did whatever I needed. They, before I'd even asked them, they were asking me what modifications they needed to make so I could keep on working. And obviously some stuff I couldn't do anymore. I couldn't, reach down to the ground and pick up a rock.
Right.
But a lot of what I had been doing was using the computer and looking at rocks in the office. And so a lot of those things I could still do, and they just had other people do whatever it was that I couldn't do. And they modified my office because when you're in a power wheelchair, you're a little bit higher than a typical chair. Yeah. And a typical desk is too low. My knees would hit it. Okay. So they put in a higher desk and several other things that they did. Put in some automatically opening doors, which they really should have had years before, because we deal with the public. Yeah. And but so now they have
They
them.
have them now. Yeah. How long did you work for them before? Oh, you're retired right now, right?
I'm retired. So let's see, that was 2003, and I retired in 2021, so that's 18 years
Okay.
after my accident, and 13 years before my accident.
So let's talk about the hobbies. I know it's so many hobbies that you have and things that you do, your books and collections and things like that. So let's go over those. And then after we show your books, I want to go and look at one of your collections, and I want you to talk about it for me.
Okay, well, I'm not sure where I should hold it.
Okay, I got it. I'll hold it for you.
I started, well, this wasn't the first book I wrote, I think. Well, actually, it was.
It was?
Because when my daughter was 2, and this was 1984, I made up a silly poem about somebody eating animals, and she thought it was really funny. So I wrote it down so that if she wanted to hear it again, I'd remember it, right? And so then I started writing others, and when I got about, 10 or so, I made a little book, printed it with a photocopy place and gave it to her and all of her cousins. And then as more cousins were born, and when my younger daughter was born, I wrote a few more. And this version ended up being published by a small publisher.
Really?
Before that, it was all stuff that I had produced myself. And both of my daughters drew illustrations for previous versions of it.
That's cool. Okay, next book.
Okay. I also write poetry for adults, mostly science fiction, fantasy, horror poetry. And this is my latest book, which came out last year.
Some disassembly required.
And that's the title of one of the poems, but I chose it because I think it's really creepy.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to portray.
Do you like writing and reading creepy books, like scary books?
Well, up to a point. I don't like slasher movies. I don't like books about serial killers, but I do like stuff that can be really creepy. And my favorite author is a novelist. He also writes poetry, but mainly he's a novelist named Tim Powers, and he writes fantasy books where different kinds of magic, like the Egyptian gods or the Indian gods or the Celtic gods or the German gods. He says, what if they were real? And it's happening today still.
Okay.
What would happen?
Right.
And those are what his books are like.
Gotcha.
And, I really love that.
That's cool. That's cool.
And my wife read the first one, but she said she never wanted to read it again and she wouldn't read anymore. It's too dark for her.
She said that? Yeah. All right, last book. Okay.
This is a geology textbook, and it's a revision of one that the 2 senior authors wrote, Friedman and Sanders, back in the 70s. And much later in the 80s, I was working for Friedman at his research lab, and they wanted to update the book and asked me if I'd help. So the 3 of us did this version, and it's no longer distributed by the publisher, but you can find it online easily enough.
And this is
Principles of Sedimentary Deposits. And it's about how sediments like sand and mud turn into rock and what the rocks are like, basically. It's for it would be a basic class in college for a geologist.
Wow. Mr. David, I don't know too much about the things that you know, but I've learned a lot of things in my life. It's very interesting. I can tell you all about baseball. I can tell you all about the civil rights struggle. I can, because I wrote a book. It's called Mind State on Freedom when I was 14 years old.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of it. Actually, I was 12 or 13 years old. But anyway, it just shows the culture and how we were raised differently. And
oh, I know. Yeah. I know different parts of our culture were raised very differently.
Yeah.
my parents were from New York City, and both white, and I grew up in Virginia, but in a university town, and they associated with faculty members, and they weren't all white, but not very many of them were black.
Right.
Some of them were Hispanic or from other parts of the world. And, when I went to school,
High school or middle school?
well, high school, well,
So let me-
Charlottesville is a southern town.
Southern town.
So it's one of those towns where before the civil rights struggle was successful, it was segregated, and there were one set of schools for black students and another set for white students. But then when I was coming up, that wasn't true anymore. It was integrated. And so the little schools that they had before only had 1 or 2 grades in them because that's all that was fit once you integrated everybody.
Right.
And but when I went to high school, I was in the county high school, and there was also one in the city, and a lot more of the black people in the area lived in the city, so it was segregated in that sense.
So when
All the
was-
black people from the county went to my school, but it wasn't very many.
Gotcha. And when was the first time you actually went to school with a black kid?
You know, I can't remember
Okay.
because I wasn't close friends with any. I was pretty shy, so
Yeah.
I didn't have very
Were
many
you
close.
shy?
Yeah. Most years I had 1 or 2 friends, maybe 3 some years.
Gotcha.
But when I was 8 or 10, I went to a camp up in the mountains, the Appalachians, for a nature camp. And there was a black kid there who was from Chicago, and we really hit it off.
Awesome.
And, so we hung out together. And later, my family was doing a road trip across country. He didn't really live in Chicago. He lived in one of the suburbs. Anyway, we stopped and visited them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
It was
awesome.